The early morning hours of July 4th in 1976, 100 Israeli commandos headed for a night mission to the Entebbe airport in Uganda. Their mission? Rescue hostages. And rescue them they did. 102 of 106 hostages were rescued that day, and the total fatality count for the 100 commandos? 1. Enemy Coast Ahead, by Jeremy White, has absolutely nothing to do with that raid. In fact, it actually is a different raid. In the month of May, in 1943, specially trained crewmen flying Lancaster bombers took on an equitably daring raid to take out dams and disrupt the production of Germany by taking out these special dams using a very unique approach of bouncing bombs. Is it any good? Does it actually act as a fun game? Is it interesting? Let's take a look. Advance for the glare. I tried to reduce it a little bit, but you have to understand this is in fact not a mounted board, but the actual game map is in fact paper. Not my favorite, but I understand. But these are all the components that come with Enemy Coast Ahead, and wargamers will have no problem going, yep, I recognize most of the pieces and stuff there, but it's going to be incredibly daunting for someone stepping in and going, I have no idea what to do. It's like going from an RC remote control aircraft to sitting in the cockpit of a 747 to them. So I'm going to go over some basic elements of what's involved. The rule book, obviously. These 4 very helpful guides pretty much mean you don't need to go to that very often, because these are tremendously well done, very logically indexed and organized, and because the game is linear, you're really not going to have any issue. It only looks daunting until you get involved. This is the scenario guide. There are 10 scenarios in the game. The first 1 through 9 are actually vignettes or snippets of the actual mission this is designed to be, which is scenario 10, which is the end-to-end experience from planning to flight to targeting to result. Here's all the components that come in the box. There's a lot of them organized, but once again, it might appear daunting, but the reality is, because of the way this game is set up, you're never going to be overwhelmed, because you're only going to be focusing on a specific area or a specific thing at one time. This here is the actual map. Now you'll notice it's divided into 3 sections, and that makes it very, very cool. First section here is the planning turn, and I will admit that I have not played the full scenario 10 yet, so I am not an expert, I'm just an enthusiast. This whole planning phase is everything about the work that was done historically to prepare the crew and the pilots for this incredibly ingenious bombing run, and almost sequential down the list, things to do, training, flight. When the time comes that you're ready to move on to the next step, you go into the second phase, which is the flight phase. This is the part where they leave England, and they're going to go through these zones, simulating the flying over the water into enemy territory of Germany here. And once your flights of bombers have made it through there, we go to the final stage. And the final stage, these sections here where the bombers actually target, attempt to get to each of these dams. Now there's only pictures of 3 dams, but they actually are repurposed for the other dams that aren't listed by name here. There's additional ones, like this is also used for Dima, Listerhen, and Anepi. And this is where you spend the final portion of your game time in the scenario, and this is where the rubber meets the road. These are the actual runs of your waves of units against the dams in an attempt to destroy them. Primary targets, secondary targets, targets of last opportunity, and these all represent certain elements of the resistance, the German resistance, whether it be flak or searchlights or balloons. Everything happens here. Now I'm going to tell you that this might be overwhelming, but the reality is the designer's done a tremendous job of inverting the learning process. Instead of starting off going, well, let's all start with planning and let's walk you through flight and walk you through this, he actually reverses it and says, you know what, let's start you out right here. in the first several scenarios, this is your world, or something like it. You really only focus on this section here. I think it's brilliant for someone of my mind that likes to learn in chunks and do the mental chunking. This is the absolutely correct way for me to learn, because I learn the end result. Basically, we start by saying, let's finish the goal, and then, okay, now that you understand what the goal is, let's go back and learn about the flight from the time they leave England till you get to that goal. And then finally, once that's learned, they're like, okay, now let's do all the planning and have you actually do the end-to-end experience and really take command of the entire effort towards the dam busting that was historically done successfully in 1943. Is to give a little more information about these sheets, these wonderful, wonderful sheets. Like I said, because the game is linear, you're really at any time only going to be following effectively the yellow brick road. In fact, your attack turn is just this. This is all you do on your attack turn, are these 4 steps. They break away into these sub-steps, and each one of them follows down the yellow brick road. For example, when you get to step 2, check speed, you go to A2. A2 tells you exactly what to do and exactly what to consider. You will find as you play that these are very logical, kind of orderly steps that you're doing to try to give yourself the best chance you can to have each bomber achieve success in dropping their bomb and doing sufficient damage to take out the dams. These are really well organized. I mean, really well organized. And once again, because you're not having to branch off into 4 or 5 different decision points, you're really steering. You're steering a course through whatever hand you're dealt towards the end result of actually doing as well as or better than the Lancaster waves did historically. So really, really like those. So I'm going to do a small walkthrough of one of the first scenario. Scenario 1 is, once again, narrowed down to here. Plenty of time to go over the other stuff, and I'm really hoping that other people can do way better quality videos of this fantastic game, because I'm amazed at the dearth of videos available for this, because it is a truly exceptional and immersive game. So scenario 1 has 1 wave of bombers that will attack 1 target. All scenario 1. Now scenario 1 basically cuts to the chase. All of the planning has been done. The flight over the channel to the mission target area here is done. So effectively what we're getting is a pre-canned mission. We have all of our units picked out for us, and we have the dam picked out and the conditions established. So we're basically going to start by going in and basically giving you the initial scenario that you would play when you purchase this game. Now, a couple things to mention before we begin. 1, just to give you a little bit of an idea, in the dam, this is the bombing runs. It's all about the bombing runs. Far, near, close, release, climb. It's kind of important. This is the whole world of the bombers. Various attack sequences, which we'll go over. Approach vector checks, attack turns. This is the information about the dam. You'll notice that our flak level is 3, not good. Recon 2, that's decent. That will give us an advantage, because in the planning stage, it was determined that they were able to get some information from the dam to help increase the odds that the dam could be busted. Activity level is basically anything that you do that causes a disturbance in the force in such a way that it might bring in night fighters. Night fighters are dreaded in that you never really see them, at least in this scenario, until it's too late, but you hardly see them, and it's always a risk, but not a guarantee. An interesting thing, it's the fear of death itself being more powerful than death. Same thing with night fighters. You fear them, even though you may never see them. They might affect your decision-making simply on the possibility of their arrival. This is our squadron. These are the units that will be taking on the mission. Each of these, if you'll notice, is the actual Lancaster bomber, all historical information intact. These are real people, real planes, real heroes. The upkeep is the actual name of the bomb. Not a general term for upkeep. It is the actual rolling bomb. It was nicknamed Upkeep. Each of these has a secret amount of damage they do in the back that is not revealed until they actually release the bomb and it strikes. So each of these, you'll notice on the top, the upkeep, you'll notice on the bottom each one has a level of leadership, of skill. So in the planning phase, you can spend some resources to get your crew to be more seasoned, which obviously benefits them because it gives them an advantage in hitting their target. Obviously, there's green, aircrew seasoned, and veteran. And this is our units here. The one extra thing you'll notice is that certain of these aircraft actually have special leader tokens. These are Gibson. These give you a one-time bonus. Now I flipped them over just to show them, but if you actually flip them over, you're going to see, oh, this one gives you a reroll, used once. These are use and lose kinds of things. Once you use them, you flip them over, and that's the benefit. So they're a one-time benefit for the mission. Finally, you're going to have these tokens, and this is kind of the meat of the game when you're in the targeting phase. These chips are, let's see if we can focus here. They give you the actual approach. You want it to be a certain speed. The higher the chit level, the better it is, because when you actually release, it gives you the best chance of actually hitting your target correctly. Ugh, that one's terrible. You get that one, you throw it back. And that is what happens. When you're going in, you get an opportunity to replace chits and try to improve your chances. I think the most chits you can get is 3. So that's the approach. This is your speed rating. These are your altitude ratings. You want to be at the right altitude at the right speed when you drop that sucker. 2 chits, whatever. Don't worry about the reverse side for now. But that's basically the setup for you, and this is what's going to happen. So now I'm going to walk you through the beginnings of the mission. And I will put the upkeep and all of the stuff needed for our mission leader here, and he is the mission leader for the first wave, here in the circling near box. That's going to have significance later when we start actually playing a game. Matter of fact, Gibson, as is in historical fashion, will be the first bomber to approach the dam and begin an attempt to release the bomb and crack that sucker open. Let us begin our first run on the dam. At this point, we have our starting wing leader here, and he's going to make the first run. Notice the attack turn sequence here that will walk us through all the steps. So the first thing we do, with all of our other units over here waiting, they're actually in the circling far, which means they're kind of off the beaten path a little bit, and will have to be moved in during the circling phase over here. But we're going to focus on our fearless leader, Gibson. He is going to start his run, and to do that we go, okay, it's time to start a run. We're going to go to approach. We move into the far location here. These two will be discussed later. Now once we go here, the first thing we do is we approach and we check our speed. Actually, nope, I lied. First we're going to do an approach vector check. Notice that we have clear skies. This was dictated to us by the scenario itself. Notice also that our recon level is 2, and so we're going to go here to here, and we are going to roll a dice to find out how much how much we're going to have to penalize ourselves for speed and altitude check. In other words, how close were we when we started our run to actually being at a point where we could do it with little to no deviation of great magnitude. So we take a die, red die, we roll it, 2, not good. Following the chart down 1 to 2, we see that at recon level 2, no fog, so we don't have to worry about the altitude issues that fog can entail. We find ourselves with this unfortunate dilemma of 2 speed demerits, which we'll note here, -2 speed for the next step. Alright, well that's not real great, but we're going to go with it because, well, that's what we've trained for. Okay, so next we do the altitude check, and the speed check. The speed check normally for a veteran crew is 3. That means we would grab 3 chits. However, we only get to grab 1 chit. So we're going to grab 1, and it is... Wow. Well, that's not very great speed. It's not the worst, but it's still a little bit slow. 210 is slow. Don't like that. But now we get to check the altitude. Our altitude is also 3, so we're going to take 3 random chits, and we're going to look at them right here. We're not going to do the purple side, we only do the gray side for now. Purple is later, sorry, pink is later. Well, this isn't too bad, it's not great or bad. 65 feet. The bomb needed to be dropped at a very precise 60 feet above the surface. And so that's okay. But it's not great, it's not bad, but that's the way it is. Now we have to do a flak check. And so we're going to roll. Our flak check level is 3. And so to do the flak check, what we're going to do is we're going to roll, well, check if we have lights on, and for the most part, we're going to have lights on. Aldous lights, special lights used to detect how far up the bomber was from the surface of the water. But we're going to roll 2 dice if we don't have our lights on, 3 dice if we do have our lights on. That 3rd dice, I gotta tell you, is a killer. And we're going to keep the 2 most lethal. Now at flak level 3, we have to hit 4 to 6. So if any of our dice summed up are 4 or 6, and it has to be 2 dice, then we are going to take a flak hit, and that's basically damage, and that's not good. And it's 2. So we have a combination of 7, 7, and 2. So we have escaped the flak check this time. There are many flak checks as we approach. So let's not get our hopes up quite yet. Okay, we've done the flak check, and now we're going to have to make a decision. At this point, watch, notice on the arrows, we can pull up and say, you know what, I'm not liking this run, we need to start over. Why you would do that, it'll make sense to you in just a little bit. Or do we release the bomb right now? Like if we had, hey, I'm in a situation. How do we know when to release? Well, first off, we have to eventually get to a point where we're going to have modifiers plus the roll of 2 die equal 15. 15 means yes, it actually got to the dam. If you don't get up to 15, then it was a dud. It fell off the beaten path. That run and that plane is done. It's dropped its bomb, and now all it can do is either escort other planes or go circle in the near or far box waiting to come home. So you get a one-shot deal when it's time to release. However, notice in the far that we have a -2 modifier if we release here. That's a long ways away, and usually not what you want to do, I wouldn't think. So our last option then is to continue to approach. So we approach the near section, and now we get to make an adjustment. This is all one big thing. So now we get to decide, okay, I can either adjust my altitude or my speed. It's my choice. I'm obviously going to adjust my speed, so I take 1, just 1, and I compare it and say, how is that? Is this better? No, that's not better. So it goes back in the pool. There's no value to that. Another flak check. Once again, we need 4 to 6. 4, so we have 5. So, oh, and doubles. Ugh. But the doubles aren't what actually contributed to that. So now we have a choice to make, and it's not a good one. We can take a damage, and that means we flip this this token over, and it becomes a damaged ship with a -1 modifier. There. Or we have the option to take 1 evasive maneuver and try to stop it. And honestly, I think that's what we're going to do, because this isn't really worth anything. I really don't ever want to do that. And then we try again to do an evasive action. An evasive action is you roll a die, and if it's even, your hit is a miss. If it's odd, well, you're going to take the damage anyway. And it is odd, of course. Just our luck. So we're going to flip this over. We now are a damaged little sucker. 1 more hit and we're done. Just flat out done and sadness. Now I could have used this to re-roll, but I'm not going to, because I might actually use it later. We're not dead yet, Captain. Alright, so that's done. And now we have another choice. Where's my aircrew? Oh, Sorry, the veterinary there. That's important. Okay, so that flak really did a number on us. And now we have to decide, are we going to release and not take the penalty and be in a position? Well, clearly we're not in a position. 2 chits, yeah, no, that's not going to... That's an incredibly risky maneuver. Or do we approach? Now, if we approach and get too close, then we release. Then not only are we going to have to do the normal roll, we're also going to have to do a late release check. In other words, if we got too close, did we release so close that we're just going to have to take a penalty? Basically, this is the sweet spot if you can possibly release, but we're not ready to do that. We're not in a position at all. So we pull up, and we're going to go right back to the near box, and that's that. We are not going to make any other runs on this. Everything gets discarded. We're basically restarting. But what's interesting about that, and now we go back up to the circling phase, because we didn't release, so we're back up to circling. And then we're going to move any other boxes, any other aircraft into the near box that we want, but we're not going to do that right now. We're going to focus just on this, resolving this, because this is just an example. It doesn't demonstrate an optimal play style at all. Just for example. That's my rationale, and I'm sticking to it. So we go back up here in our circle phase. We can drop a very light light once it's time. And what does that very light light do? Well, it gives us an advantage in future rounds. The more very lights, basically what it effectively simulates is I dropped a flare so that the next run around has better lighting to be able to make a run. So now I'm going to be the one that benefits from it, but I don't have to be. I could drop a very light light and then have some other bomber group come in instead. Only one goes through at a time, but that doesn't have to be the same one. The idea is you're dropping these very light lights in a way to try to help improve the odds of your rolls and such. I can't exactly remember how, but they do. They help. Just trust me, they help. Alright, so then we go into the status phase, and we move the attack turn over to the next, because we're obviously spent some time, so now we got to go back around and try again. So we do a visibility check on certain terms, and that visibility check is for fog. Again, 4! Yay! That makes it only 1S. Nice. Actually, no, I take that back. That's not what it's for. It's for whether it's foggy or clear. So 5 or less is fog. Bomber. Oh, 2 dice. Sorry. 5 or less is 7. So no fog. We're clear. Clear is good, because if it was foggy, we'd have to take everything in the box instead of just whatever's on the top. Alright. So then, defense attrition is an opportunity for us to be able to reduce the defenses in a general way. We can do that after we release our bomb. We can be close enough to do that every time we release, but there's also kind of a general, hey, let's see if we can knock some stuff out during our run. So what we do on the defense attrition is we roll 1 die for each defense category. Our flak's at 3. If I roll equal to or less than 3, then I get to reduce the flak. In this case, I don't, because it's a 5. Oh well, I tried. Alright, so then we do the next step, which is the Night Fighter check. And the Night Fighter check is scary. So we roll 2 dice. If we have searchlights on, which there are no searchlights here, then that's going to make it pretty unsightly, but we don't. Our alert level is 1. In other words, they're really not aware that we're doing this. So if I roll a 3 to 5 with these rolls, 4, then the Night Fighters would be sighting me. And there is a second level when, even though they sight you, they could ignore you, they could kind of meander over and see what you're doing, but there's no guarantee that they're actually going to attack you straight up, but they could. That's the thing. It's always about the possibilities of what they could do more than what they end up usually doing. Okay, so the Night Fighter roll is done. That's the last part of the status phase. And then, sorry as I get my cheat sheet going here, the detonation result is only valid if I actually was able to release the bomb that turn, and I wasn't. So then we do a final check for flares. As time goes by, these flares roll out. So basically for each, I roll a die for each flare, and then I subtract 1 of turns. I take the number, subtract the number of turns since I last lit the flare. So 2 minus, well, this one doesn't count, we just put it here. 2 minus 1 is 1. And if it's 1 or more, we keep the flare. If it's less, then we get rid of the flare. But we don't get rid of the flare because it's, well, it's going to be important to us. And that's really it for the status phase. So what do? Well, we go back and we prepare for a bomber in the near box to try another attack run. I'm going to stick with Gibson because I really want him to release his bomb and show that to you. If I was playing a more thoughtful match, I might consider actually sending someone else and having him escort instead, because if I can bring other planes to escort, they can take damage that would normally be associated with the aircraft. Of course, they could also get destroyed too. That's the risk reward you have to take. But in this case, we're doing okay and getting our, and you know, we have plenty of resources to try and break that dam. So in the next segment here, I'm going to go through its next attack run and hopefully come to a resolution where we can get this dam fractured. For another run, Gibson is wounded, his aircraft is damaged, but we're going to press on anyway. We begin by going to the approach phase, and back he goes into the approach zone again in the near box. Now the first thing we're going to do is the usual check to see what our approach vector is. And once again, we look at our box here, and we decide, roll a dice. It is 5. 5 is good. Our recon level is 2, which means that we are at 5 and 6. Ho ho! We are clear. We have no detriments at all, which means this is going to be a great run. I can feel it already. So the first thing we do is check our speed. So we grab 3 more tiles. 1, 2, 3. First one's we have erratic, we have approach, and we have approach at 216. Well, we're back kind of there again, but we're going to set that there. These suckers go back into the bucket. The next step, we're going to check our altitude level, and for that we're going to grab another 3 because we have a veteran crew, and that is 1, 2, and please give me something good. Oh no, erratic again. So we're back to 2 and 2, which is better than last time, but not altogether that incredibly great. Now we have the flak check again. Oh, those doggone lights. So once again, our flak checks tells us that at flak level 3, which we weren't able to reduce in the last turn, is going to not be well for us. It's basically 4 to 6. We have nothing that added together equals 6. This is cool. We have dodged the flak again, which is a good thing, because I really didn't want him to get destroyed on this run. Alright, so flak check complete. Now we have to decide, do we go forward? Obviously, I think we should. We're already at a -2 if we throw our bomb out here. So we're going to move into the next one. And that's flak and gunnery, which I do believe I missed last time. Nevertheless, once you go into the air zone, you can make an adjustment. You're flying forward, you're changing your course to try and get closer, so which one are we going to try for? We can grab one chit, and I'm going to try the approach. I'm going to try to change my speed. Is there any way that I can get something better than this lousy 2? I'm going to grab one, and it is awesome. Perfect speed. 3 chits. Perfect. So we're going to swap that out. So now we're doing pretty good. We've got a pretty good bead on what's going to happen. Unfortunately, we do need to run flak again, so same thing. Flak level 3 means any combination of 5 or 6, or 5 to 6. Oh, actually, no. Any combination of 4 to 6. Doggone it. Okay, I'm going to fake it just because I want to show you how it goes. Pretend life didn't go well for us, and we didn't actually take damage, and that would have destroyed our ship. So, pretend we survived the flak. Yeah, let's just pretend. Okay, then we do front gunnery, which is basically means we can use our guns to try and take out enemy defenses. Once again, we're pretending we survived. Let's just forget that happened. Select a category, roll a dice, and if our die is greater than the defense level, we fail. If it's less, we don't. Our flak level's 3, so I need to roll a 3 or less. And it's a 4, so I did not reduce my flak in the slightest. My gunners are just not doing it. Now I could re-roll this. Sorry, I do have my special Gibson bonus if I want to use it, but I really want to save it. Once again, pretending that we didn't actually get damaged when we could have. I mean, we could have taken that hit and discarded a chit, but we're so close that I'm going to try and do this just because this is giving you a taste. This is not a full playthrough. Alright, so with that we need to decide, do we release our bomb now, or do we try to get closer and see if we can improve on this in any degree? And I honestly think that we don't want to, because if we do get this close, not only do we have to go flak again, but we gunnery test, we also have to check for a late release, and that's one thing that could harm us. We're already down -1 because of the damaged ship, so we're going to go for it. Bombs released! Kaboom! When we release, we go to the release sequence, which it tells you everything you need to do on the handy sheets, which I've been reading through, which is fantastic. So we basically put this upkeep thing here to go, yep, we released, here we are, and the order might be slightly different, but the results generally the same. We're here now, we have released the bomb, it's here. We will discover later what happens if we can actually get to 15 points. Now the first thing we do is we get our final altitude check. Now this is how it works. I have 2 chits here, which means I am going to grab two chits and check the pink side, and that pink side will tell us what the number is. Oh, look at that, I've got a +2 and a +3. Obviously I'm going to keep the +3, so that's the release point. Then we're going to grab 3 of these approach chits, and we're going to flip them over, and we have a +3, +2, +1. Obviously we're going to go for the +3. And that's that. So now we have 3 + 3 is 6. That's okay. It's not great, but it's okay. We released. Okay, now we're going to see how we did. A12. Pardon me while I do this. So we're going to roll 2 die. Really need to get 15. Really need 15. So that's a 7. 7 + 6 is 13. 13 gives us, yep, 13. We don't have any. The fact that we're using veteran air crew over here, notice veteran air crew gives us an extra +2. So 13 + 2 is 15. Yay! Except we have a -1 because we have a damaged plane. We're back to 14. Is there anything else that we can use to help us out? And the answer is no. So I'm going to use my reroll. I'm going to try to make that 2 into something better. And I did. Haha. It's a 10. Oh my goodness. I totally forgot the dummy run. Doggone it. Yeah, I forgot one very important detail when I did my run through. I apologize. So with that, we got 10, 16, 15, plus 2 is 17, and so we would say that we successfully managed to release the bomb. It actually worked. If we succeed, we keep the damage. We place this over here on the dam, knowing that it caused damage, and resolve the detonation phase later. But we've done it. This climbs into the circle. We go into the climbing phase. He's done, and we are set. And at that point, we can go into the circling phase, where we then back into the circling near box, and that we can do. At this point, we can bring in other bombers in the circling phase. Once again, I could bring in, a couple more guys in preparation for a subsequent attack on the turn, and that's that. Then we actually go to the status phase. Visibility checks will happen. We're not going to go through those. Defense attrition, that's an opportunity to drop the flak level down again. We're not going to go through that. Night fighter check, which could still mess with us and cause us to have to flee. The detonation result is the interesting part, because that's the one that's going to show us how much damage it did, and that's interesting. We roll a die, and if it's even, we take the odd or even of that to determine how much damage we did. Oh, that's sweet. Notice that because this is odd, the result is odd. We have successfully done 5 points of damage to this dam, for the most part. There is a follow-up return to base check that's done, but we've done 5 damage. How much does it take for the dam to be destroyed? 6, based on the water level there. So that's a pretty good run. We didn't get too far in showing you a lot of the other intricacies, mostly because I'm very, very, as you know, not good at videos. But that's a little taste of it. The fact of the matter is, at the end of this particular mission, these are going to fly back to base, they're going to go back, and then there's a follow-up at the end. Once it gets to base, it actually tests, and you roll another die to see if the recon that came the next morning, can confirm that you actually did that much damage. The variance is 1, so you could either lose 1 or even gain 1 by the roll of the die. So at this point, we're in a position where the next few planes are most likely going to go in, do their own runs, and take out the dam pretty much with ease. The one thing I completely failed to mention was the dummy run. This explains a lot of why it is that you do runs and then you pull up. Because one of the questions that people have or have had is why wouldn't I just go through, take my chances, and well, obviously you want the best numbers possible, because it's really, really on the edge whether you're going to get 15 or not. You really have to go, okay, I'm going to take the risk, I'm going to do my best. I've got to give myself the best chance to get a 15 so that it's not a complete dud. But the other reason is, as you are going through these, as you pull up, you get this dummy run marker, and you only get one at a time. But what does it do? It lets you at any point in time be able to trade this back out to be able to add or remove a chit, or add a chit, or change into using a different chit, which gives you yet another opportunity if you have a crappy altitude or speed, to be able to reconcile that. That seems like a pretty subtle thing, but it actually is pretty powerful, because each time you do a dummy run, you're going to get this back, and it's going to give you another shot, another opportunity to try to increase your odds. At the end of the game, it's all about increasing odds. So that's really effectively unfortunately, all too scattered turn sequence of just the initial and close-up targeting portion of this incredibly broad game. Following through the steps is real easy, more easy than when you're doing it with a camera. But in each and every step, you're going to know what to do. The game flows, the pacing is good. In this particular case, I think I showed just a little bit of what happens, but imagine flak, and then imagine adding searchlights as well to that, and balloons later on that come into play. And the different dams, you'll notice some of them are in the same way. There's a different set of criteria here. This is a particularly nasty thing that must be done when you're climbing up out of the canyon to simulate the fact that this particular dam didn't have a lot of room to pull up after you threw down the bomb. And here you'll notice you really only have far and close, and so you got to make some choices there that don't give you that nice, easy, near box to work with. So that's really a taste of the game. As I branch out, and you can see a lot more. This whole area not covered, but this is great for people that want to actually do a lot more planning. Bring their flights in, do the bonk, come back. The planning part here just completely gives you freedom to be able to decide who's going to attack what are the plans, to do the best, try and train up your crew as best as you can. Everything's about giving your guys the best chance to get these dams taken out. So that's a little bit of a run through. And now we'll go to my final thoughts before we conclude this video. Once again, let's cover my final thoughts on the game Enemy Coast Ahead by Jeremy White. First off, it's way better of a game than this video. Looking through it, I'm quite certain that I made a few tactical mistakes or errors in the rules, and I would be much more apologetic if I had any confidence at all in my video skills. I'm doing this video because I'm just shocked that there aren't more videos and attention given to this game. I like it. I like it enough to basically make a crappy video about it. The reason I like it is because it is a rich narrative that compels the player to live through the decisions and deal with the consequences and the variables that are involved in one of the more unique raids ever performed in the history of warfare, in my opinion. It is very much a game that will walk you through the experience for the crew. You will appreciate these chits. You will look at the face, the 1x1 square of Gibson and go, I know that guy. I want that guy to make it through this run. It would really stink if he didn't make it. Very compelling gameplay. The important and just fantastic feature for those of us who aren't wargamers by trade is the linear narrative. The idea that at any given time you're only slightly off the beaten path of what the game takes you through. Now, that's also one of the drawbacks for a lot of people is it is linear in nature. For folks who want a war game where they get to decide where to attack and when to attack, and for example, I just purchased Liberty or Death, which is a coin game that offers a large variety in how you want to approach a battle of the American Revolution. This is not that game. It doesn't intend to be that game. It's intended to walk us through a very small, microscopic experience of World War II, even though it branches out into a grand scale of planning, preparation, flight, and then ultimately, the critical point when you're trying to hit the target. It's a lengthy game. If you play the full Scenario 10, which I haven't yet, so fair warning, I've read through it, I understand what to do, I just haven't done it yet, because I wanted to get some exposure out for this game, and honestly, a playthrough from that is going to take someone far more expert at these videos than I. But one of the drawbacks that you will have from people is that it is very linear, and so if you're someone who wants more of a free-form approach to wargaming, this is probably not the game that's going to do it for you, but at the same time, it is so compelling to care about these little cardboard chits actually walking through an experience. It's not so linear that you could say it's on rails, that you're really not doing anything different, that you have no input. I don't think that's a fair statement at all. You do have input. You are given a hand of cards, and it's up to you to do your best with those cards. It is true. And while you might not have complete control over everything that happens, you will have enough control that you will be able to do your best to try to mitigate the disastrous consequences of something bad and exploit something good. It is a risk. It is a risky game. Not risk, because you are at the intent just doing everything you can to up the odds. You're starting off on a grand planning scale. You see what you get. Your flight, when you're crossing the channel, you're dealing with hazards. You're filtering down. I mean, I actually joked to one guy that I think it's the most advanced historical game of chutes and ladders you'll ever play, because it really is. You're heading one direction, and you'll have your setbacks, but you'll keep going up. But that's kind of just a glib overview. It really does matter. The nuances matter. It matters that everything that's done here has a reason, a historical rationale for what it is. It does matter that you drop very light lights, because it does mean, hey, I dropped this light so the next person that comes along can have a better shot at hitting that dam. The dummy runs. The dummy run's like a little tiny choice, but you see it and go, yeah, of course. If I go through it the first time, I'm going to be a little more prepared for when I go through it a second time. But it's a risk. Do I have to run the gauntlet of flak again? You know, or do I give it a shot here? Am I damaged? Am I I'm making critical choices? These are choices you make. You do decide the critical choices. You may not have a lot of leeway to decide a lot of different grand tactical decisions, but you decide the important things, and you decide when that risk factor is at the point where you think you can pull it off. And that's exciting. It is exciting to roll these dice. It's because it matters it matters in great ways. I love the way that they made each dam just unique. I love the way that they, set it up so that your bombing runs are, so much risk, so much reward, so much opportunity. Did you really hit the dam? How much did you hit the dam for? The flak level, the searchlights, the balloons, all these things coming at you going, okay, but I can mitigate that by bringing escorts. So if I do take damage, those escorts can take it for me. And do I make it back when I take it back? And the best thing I didn't even get a chance to show you is that it's not like you win, you lose. It's not binary. Insofar as that the rich narrative, the rich story carries on into the final results. You will have varying levels of success, and those will come with a nice snippet, a nice storyline to help wrap up that experience. You really walked through this game with the idea that you were immersed inside World War II. The best way to play this game is to hop on Amazon, grab greatest hits of World War II, get some Benny Goodman, get some Glenn Miller, Tommy Dorsey, Andrews Sisters, get that playing in the background. You just start going to feel it. You're going to be like, yeah, this is going to feel like the movie. If you haven't watched the Dam Busters movie that was done about it, that's pretty compelling too. Very interesting and very entertaining game. I think a little underrated. Just because of the nature of people when you try it. And I don't know if I gave the experience enough to show you that it's compelling. I only gave you a small snippet of what I had, but it was enough, I hope, to compel you to take a look at it and say, hey, maybe this is kind of a cool game. And once again, it's not for everybody. I mean, it's not to what I'd say the level of a grand masterpiece, which I would consider, say, Liberty or Death, which just recently came out. But honestly, as far as this goes, I would say the game is, damn good. Thanks, have a good time, and I hope you give it a shot.